Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahavityankaravavakai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vitvishavahai Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat Arunachala Shiva Arunachala Shiva Arunachala Shiva Arunachala Arunachala Shiva Arunachala Shiva Arunachala Shiva Arunachala. We are discussing Upadesa Undiyar, which is also known as Upadesa Saram, composed by Bhagavan Shri Ramana Maharshi. So today we will see the verse, 10th verse, and more, maybe 11th if we can. உதித்த விடத்தில் ஒடுங்கி இருத்தலது கண்மம் பக்தியும் முந்தி பர அது யோக ஞானமும் முந்தி பர. உதித்த இடத்தில், in the place where it arose or where you rose, where you arose. We say no sunrise. Where is the sun rising? We say no. Say place. So the point from where, the place from where the sense of self, individual sense of self arises. Odungi iruttal, to be absorbed back in the same place. That is karma, bhakti, yoga and jnana. We have to add the word, the aim of, the purpose of. That is the purpose of karma, bhakti, yoga and jnana. Now, bhakti and yoga are not different. Okay. Why he has said that is because around the time of Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi, because of Swami Vivekananda and all that, this four path, karma yoga, bhakti yoga, raj yoga, jnana yoga, this concept has become famous. This that become part of the vocabulary already. So because of that, probably Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi also is not an exception to the prevailing vocabulary. So he used that prevailing vocabulary to clarify that. But he has already discussed before in a few verses. We saw Udal Vakku Ulattozhil Undipara, the actions of the body, activity of the body, activity of the speech, activity of the mind. Nishkamya karma, upasana, we saw meditation, japa and meditation. On God with the bhavana, and the highest of bhavana being ananya bhava, or worshipping the Supreme Being with the attitude that I am that is me. Right? God is my true nature, with that understand. So we saw in detail all of that. The aim of all these practices, the different kinds of practices, different kinds of approaches based on the preparedness level of the disciple, of the student, of the sadhaka, the practitioner, the seeker. Based on the level of the seeker, the nature of the practices differs. If the mind is very outward and action oriented, and the person is living a very active life and has commitments, then the aspect of karma yoga needs to be emphasized more. The person cannot renounce, but try to bring the attitude of renunciation by renouncing the result of actions in karma yoga. and gradually that will facilitate the inwardness of the mind. And then when there is enough detachment, when there is enough maturity, one is ready for meditation. When life of karma is also accompanied with specific practices, spiritual karma. Along with worldly karma, one also does spiritual actions in the form of ritualistic worship, attitude based worship of the whole universe as God, the chanting of mantras, study, chanting of mantras, and maintaining an attitude of relationship with God, which culminates in the I and God are one. God is my own self. That Ananya Bhava attitude. So, with all that, one arrives at what was discussed in verse number 9, the previous verse. Bhava Balattinal Bhavanatita Satbhavatirtale Yundipara Parabhakti Tattvam Undipara. The truth or the ultimate truth or the reality or the principle, the point of the relevance of the meaning of Parabhakti, the highest bhakti, is remaining in that space which is beyond all kinds of bhava or attitude. Bhavanatita sadbhavati yurtal means sadbhavam means it is not a bhavam, it is sat itself, the pure consciousness, abiding as the pure consciousness in the absolute silence of the mind and the ego. Nirvikalpa samadhi, we can say. So that is the highest bhakti. So bhakti must lead a person to the state where one is able to completely absorb the mind back at its source, which is what is described in the current verse. Absorbing back at the source from where the mind and the ego arises. That is understood. From the next verses, it is understood he's talking about mind, individuality, prana. All these arise from a point. He did not say this chakra, that chakra. He just said the place from where it all arises, which means we trace the mind and you trace every movement of the mind and prana back to its source. So that is the approach. Now, why he says this is the purpose of everything? For example, the person who does some action, some activity, why does he do? When will he stop doing it? When the action has reached its purpose. When the purpose of the action is accomplished, that action is not done anymore. You may not be attached to the result, that is different. But any action is done to the point where that action is not required anymore. Point where there is no need for that action anymore. Right? So, what would be the culmination of all activity, all effort, any kind of effort that you can imagine? If all those efforts and all types of efforts, all levels of effort has to come to an end, absolute rest, when will it come to an end? When you have accomplished all that you need to accomplish. The word for that is krita kritya. The one who has done all that needs to be done. It is a term that is used to refer to a Jivan Mukta or a person who is liberated while being alive, the enlightened person. When I have accomplished all that I need to accomplish, it means I have done all that I need to do. There is no reason for any effort anymore, because there is not even an iota of dissatisfaction on any front. One is experiencing the completeness that is unconditioned by any of the unconditioned completeness, that is not that is not limited by any condition in the body or the mind or in life, not in space, not in time. That absolute completeness, what we chant in the end of the class, Purnamada Purnamidam, that Purnatvam. When one realizes oneself as the Purnatvam, as the completeness, there is no need for any effort to accomplish any limited purpose. So that person is called Kritakritya. So the term one who has done all that needs to be done is being used to refer to a person who is liberated while being alive. So can we say that when one attains the self, which is the infinite, it is the equivalent of achieving all that you need to achieve. See, when you do make an effort and enjoy the result of the effort in a normal life, when you have a desire, you make an effort, then you attain the object of the desire. What happens? You are effortless for a short period of time until the next desire arises. So during that short period of time, what do you call that? What do you call that short period of time when you are enjoying absolute effortlessness, where your effort, where you are experiencing no need for any effort? That small period of time when you have achieved the result, it is called the moment of satisfaction. Starting from the time when we were children, when we bought a little toy and then we were very happy, until the next brighter toy came to our attention, that small brief moment we call satisfaction. It is the same no matter what you want to achieve in life, be it a relationship, be it a career success, be it uh, earning of wealth, or buying some object of your liking, or eating some kind of food, traveling, whatever you may think of. You are going behind that effort in order to arrive at a point where that effort is not needed anymore, which you call as the point of satisfaction. I am satisfied. Appa, I don't need to struggle anymore. Now I am settled in life. Means what? You are not going to go behind artha anymore. You don't feel the need for going behind artha. Artha means wealth and security anymore, because you feel you have settled down. Right? So that restlessness with respect to kind of sense of security has gone. So one feels comfortable with respect to one's quality of life, etc. So any action, any karma, if it is spiritual karma or worldly karma, no matter what it is, any karma, its purpose is cessation of karma when the result of that karma is realized. When the karma phala is realized, there is no more need for karma. So that is what every karma is aimed at. We never think about this, no? Did we ever think about in this angle? So if you have achieved that infinite, which is your own self, it is like achieving the end of all actions. So we can say the purpose of all karma is this. What is the point of bhakti? The point of bhakti is to bring one pointed concentration on the Lord, so that you will be able to arrive at the highest kind of bhakti, which is ananya bhakti, which will lead to bhavatitam, which is again the same, the point from where everything arises, to being absorbed back at the source of everything, which is your true self. What is the purpose of yoga, which is control of prana and everything? Here, when he mentions yoga, karmamam bhaktiyum undi pare, yogamam jnanamam undi pare, when he mentions yoga as a separate word, he basically means pranayama, control of the mind through the control of the prana. That is what is being used here in this context. Because he is distinguishing bhakti and yoga. Bhakti, the main force of concentration or control that facilitates the withdrawal, the main force is bhava, love, a loving attitude towards the object of meditation. When you mean yoga, the mode of arriving at stillness is control of prana primarily. Control of prana accompanied by detachment, discrimination, etc. We will see that in the when we see the next verse. Jnana, what is the purpose of jnana? The jnana is to know the true self. So, jnana is basically, here it means viveka as a process, separating the self from the not self, extracting your sense of self from all the wrong identifications and freeing that sense of I am and tracing it back to its root, which Bhagavan Ramana Maharishi talks about in the coming verses, in the later part of this text. So the purpose of all these spiritual practices, puja, japa, bhakti, bhava, some doing dharmic and acts in self, in the sense of detachment, living a dharmic life with the sense of detachment, karma, practicing upasana, which is bhakti, with puja, japa, etc., and practicing pranayama, the different practices like pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, etc., which is yoga, and practicing the viveka, applying the viveka and atma vichara and tracing the mind back to its source, extracting the sense of I from all the false identifications, and through vichara, which is guided by the scriptures, etc. All of this leads to this point where one frees oneself from the clutches of the mind by removing the ignorance. So this is the purpose of all the practices, is to come back to the source, because the source of the mind and ego is the source of the entire universe also, which is Brahman. That from which everything came, that in which everything is sustained, that into which everything goes back in the end. Seek to know that. Realize that is Brahman. When you know that, you will cross the ocean of sorrow. Upanishad. Right? So, and there is that the source of the mind and that which lies at the root of the mind and the prana and the individuality, the source of everything, the absolute self and Brahman are one. They are not. They are one and the same. This self is Brahman. Is being discussed. It is being mentioned later in Upadesha Vandya. So this is the purpose of all the practices. So we have to add that line. The purpose of karma, bhakti, yoga, and jnana. Okay. So after explaining that, he starts talking about pranayama. வழி உள் அடக்க வலைபடு புட்போல் உளமும் ஒடுங்குறும் உந்தி பெற ஒடுக்க உபாயம் இது உந்தி பெற. When you control or when you capture the breath inside, when you hold the breath inside, vali means air. Okay. When you hold the breath inside, like a bird which is caught in a trap, in a net, the mind also will calm down. This is one way of silencing the mind. So if one is not able to work at the level of the buddhi and the bhava directly, one may work at the level of prana. So this is what is doable for most people. Now he uses the word vali. Also in Sanskrit it is vayu rodhana is uses. So why he uses the word vayu or vali, air, instead of prana or the force of the vital energy and all that? Because prana is mainly controlled through the controlling of the breathing. You cannot access prana directly at the beginning level. One can access, you can control prana through intention alone, but that is an advanced level. So if you are already at that level, then you don't need pranayama. So here it is being said for a person who needs the practice of pranayama, where one accesses, one develops gradually subtler and subtler control over the movements of prana by developing finer and finer control over the breathing process. Then eventually to the point from where the breathing urge arises. One has to go from breath control to the control over the urge to breathe, and from there to control over prana. Here, Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi uses a fantastic example. Valaipadu putpol ulamum odungurum. The mind here, ulam, he means the mind, the chitta. The chitta will constrict, the chitta will calm down, it will contract back to its source, it will silence itself. The chitta or the mind will become silent, will get controlled like the bird in the nest. Once a bird is caught in a nest, how is the bird? Does the bird become very silent and quiet and starts meditating? No, the bird tries his best to get out of the nest, if you notice. So it's a fantastic example that points to the danger of excessive pranayama without working with mental maturity. It is not that you stop the prana, slow down the prana, all your mind's problems will be solved. It will not be solved. Mind remains the mind. It only switches off temporarily if your pranayama technique is good. Or the mind loses its capacity to manifest its force of vasanas at the body level. We will put it like that. For example, if you get angry, your breathing becomes very agitated. Or when you are afraid, or when you are overcome by great passion, there is an immediate change in the quality of breathing. Whenever the mind is agitated, one of the accompanying symptoms of mental agitation is agitation in the breathing. Mental agitation, emotional agitation, sensory agitation, all. Any kind, so psychosomatic, they say, right? So any movement in the psyche or mind manifests in the body, and the first symptom of a psychosomatic expression is change in the rhythm of the breathing. Because of the change in the quality of the prana. Prana is like the electricity and mind is like the software. So if I reduce the availability of the power, when I take control over the flow of prana, the mind loses its ability to express itself but remains in the background potentially, just waiting to burst out. The moment you let go of the prana control, when the mind comes out and when there are the other conditions, causes and conditions in the surroundings that is available to excite the mind, mind will get excited exactly the same way it got excited before. So there will be absolutely no personal transformation by pranayama alone. One has to understand it very clear. The basic agitated nature of the person, the ego, the quality of ego, and all that will remain the same unless one works with the mind during the context of the calmness and the silence provided by pranayama. It becomes easy. One of the terms used in Tamil for prana is vasi. Vasi also means horse. Vasi comes from the Sanskrit word vaji, right? Vaji becomes vasi, horse. So how do you control the horse? No, you train the horse. First, put it in an enclosure, let it run for some time, then give it some grass, pet it, and slowly make it friendly. And then, when it is friendly enough, it allows you to put a harness and noose and mount the saddle, and then you are able to mount the horse, and the horse obeys you intention. So the horse is connected to you, like in that Avatar movie. There is this something like a tail. All the beings in that loka, they have a kind of a tail. At the end of the tail, there is there is one kind of set of fiber optic filaments kind of thing. There is a lot of pulsating light energy there. So any animal they want to ride, they connect it. That animal, they make a connection with another person through that, and then that animal becomes their friend. It's a beautiful concept. So prana is like this. If you want to connect to prana, if you want to control the prana movement, whatever causes the movement of prana, the prana movement at its source, which means the point where the prana is connected to the mind and where the vasanas and samskaras are exciting the prana which is getting agitated or is moved by the power of conditioning, the power of vasanas and thoughts and emotions. That prana must be connected to the buddhi. There must be a connection established between the buddhi and the starting point of the pranic movement. The connection, like how you put that noose on the horse, that harness, and then you are able to grab it, and then there are these controls with the leg, with the hand, and all that, and according to that the horse responds to your command, right? So similarly, all the pranayama techniques with which you can do so many things with prana control, directing the prana for various purposes, pranic healing, all this is done once you establish the connection between your conscious will and the source of pranic movement. That is accessed by the controlling of the breathing, from there arriving at the point where you are able to control the urge to breathe that arises before the breath arises. And by learning to control and master that movement, that which is the urge to breathe, the movement that causes breathing. There is a movement or a force in the system that makes the breathing possible. Even when you are sleeping, the breathing is going on. The prana takes care of the body when you sleep by sustaining the breathing and all the vital functions. Based on karma, and the prana works. Once the prarabdha karma is over, prana will stop its work and leave the body. That's how many people die when the people die during the sleep. It means the prarabdha karma is over, and that subtle force that excites the prana to keep the prana sustaining the body is no more there, or prana itself is not available anymore. So that winding of the spring is over. prepaid card is over. So like that, the prana takes care of the system automatically, because the movements of the prana are unconscious. That is why you never know what thought comes to you, how a thought comes to you. You don't know that. I mean, you can know what thought comes to you, how a thought comes to you. You sit to meditate, and suddenly you know, from the background, you remember something. When you are thinking about one subject, something totally unconnected to that subject comes back and takes your attention away. Right? This is what is distraction all about. Yeah, I want to do something with my mind, but from the background, something else comes and calls for my attention and takes away my attention from what I want to do. So there is always a kind of a tug of war between the conscious will to do and the programmed quality of the mind. This programmed quality of the mind that demands your attention and sometimes commands your attention and makes it impossible for us to stay concentrated on what we choose to do. Whatever we choose to do, we only chose to do that, but somehow the mind is not naturally concentrated on what we choose to do. There are a lot of things towards which we are paying attention which we did not choose to pay attention. Sometimes we don't want to pay attention, but we are not able to take our mind off that. Right? We are not able to get rid of some thoughts. Keeps repeating. So all that is because of the connection between prana and the zone of the mind, the chitta, where the samskaras and vasanas are active. So the prana picked up a vasana and it is sustaining the thought pattern, goes on and on and on. So now all these movements of the mind can be switched off if you are able to silence the prana at its source. That's why he says, when you stop the breath, temporarily you stop the movement of the prana. Because first, one second, some noise on the road. I don't know how long it will go. Is it very disturbing or it is okay? Manageable. If it is manageable, I will continue to talk, or I'll wait for these guys to pass. I think some temple. Some message here. No noise for it. Oh, great. Okay, so the movement of prana can be arrested by taking control of the movement of the breath. Because how is it possible? Because I think that is explained in the 12th, the next verse. உளமும் உயிரும் உணர்வும் செயலும் உளவாம் கிளை இரண்டுந்தி பெற ஒன்று அவற்றின் மூலமுந்தி பெற. The mind and the prana, the feeling and the action. Mind leads to feeling, prana leads to action. Okay, these two are branches. There are these two branches are there, and for both these branches their source is one. The mind and the prana arise from the same spot. The symptom of the mind is feeling or thought. The symptom of the prana is action. What is the first action that happens? Breathing. So if I stop the breathing, I am not able to do anything else until I am able to restore my breath. Right? So the most fundamental activity, the first manifestation of prana as activity is breath. The first manifestation of the mind, the presence of the mind, is inferred from thoughts and feelings. Right? So, the mind and the prana are like two branches emerging from the same source. So, if I grab one, it's like grabbing the other. If I control prana, the mind will get controlled. If I control the mind, prana will also get. For example, when you are having a lot of anger, you deliberately practice empathy and compassion and try to channelize that anger. You try to work with that anger through conversation and attitude. What they call is, some auto suggestion and all that. The quality of the angry mind changes, right? As the quality of the angry mind changes, you can notice the agitation in the breathing also changes. Same thing with passion, right? In a crowd, you thought somebody is coming, somebody whom you know for a long time, some school time friend or somebody is there who you like very much, you both were very close friends. You absolutely did not expect that person in that place, in that mall or shopping place or whatever. You go there, you see that person from a distance. And then the moment you think it is that person, there is an excitement. So you want to call and you want to say hi and then run and call that person. Oh, it's been so long, and the whole conversation goes in the mind. There is agitation, change in the breathing, there is excitement in the body. And then you go a little bit nearby and then see it is somebody else who is looking the same. It is not that person. Immediately, all the excitement goes off. Immediately, there is a calm in the body. There is a suspension of the urge to do something, right? So, mind and prana, thought and activity are connected. Every thought or emotion manifests in the body as a change in the breathing or as a manifestation of some kind of sensation in some part of the body. There is this meditation technique called vipassana, where the preliminary vipassana practice, the preliminary vipassana practice is called kayanupassana, where they are watching the sensations in the body from the head to toe in a specific order. Then there is vedananupassana and all that. So by observing without any desire, without any rejection or hatred or aversion, and without any judgment and processing, intellectual processing, if you simply observe your sensations in the body, you are calming down the buddhi, you are reprogramming your reactive attitude. You are calming down the reactive attitude, and it immediately reflects in the quality of the breathing. The breathing calm becomes very subtle and soft. On the other hand, when you are very agitated, you are not able to listen, your mind is all over the place. Just practice the simple breathing, like inhale a little deep, exhale with control, exhale gradually, and exhale completely. At the end of the exhalation, hold the breath outside, feel the contraction of the abdomen for a couple of seconds, let go and inhale deep, hold for a couple of seconds and gradually let go, exhale completely, hold the breath outside, feel the contraction for a couple of seconds, let go. Just blindly do this breathing. Just blindly do a conscious deep inhale, controlled, gradual, complete exhale with a little bit of retention after inhale and after exhale. Right. Just blindly do that. 5 minutes, 7 minutes, you will see the whole background agitation would have changed completely. By the time you'd be another person. And then you can see the focus emerging. Even in a class or something, if you're very distracted, when you start doing this breathing, don't worry about listening deliberately and all that. You just focus all your restlessness on conducting a controlled conscious breathing, slow breathing. Just click that. You will see the background noise starts slowing down, and suddenly your ability to listen becomes better. You can try that even with the movie song. There is something called people getting spaced out. Whenever you're spaced out, anchor your attention back to the breathing and conduct a controlled breathing for a few minutes, and immediately you will see that spaced out feeling goes off. Especially when you combine it with concentrating on any specific body part, the navel, chest, uh, pit of the throat, eyebrow center, top of the head, or muladhara, the sensation of the feet on the ground. Any of these, if you keep an anchor of the sensation of this at the that part of the body and sustain a controlled, deliberate, willful breathing for some time, you will see your mind, your attention, everything gathering to this moment. The background noise will start coming down. No matter how much disturbed you are, you do this, you will come back. The prana movement that is responsible for the breathing starts getting aligned with your buddhi or conscious will, which is represented in the brain as a prefrontal cortex. Right? So the prana movement gets aligned with your buddhi or the willful mind. So the prana is not available to sustain the background noise. The moment you let go of the breathing, it becomes normal. The background mind will take over the prana because energy is available. And immediately background mind starts becoming noisier, and then starts pushing, calling for your attention, start pushing your, uh, by giving you urges, pushing you into a certain line of activity. Suddenly you find yourself doing something. There are people moving their legs, constantly shaking. It is all the background mind taking over the prana and asserting itself on the body. Angame jayatvam swasa praswasa. So all vikshepa sahabhuvaha. It comes in Yoga Sutra, right? Those symptoms that accompany chitta vikshepa, symptoms that accompany disturbance in the mind. In that it comes dukkam darumanisyam. Whenever you experience sorrow, bad mood, all these are mind running amok without the permission of your conscious will. And sometimes it becomes so bad that it takes over your intellect and your sense of judgment, and we start judging wrongly. That's what we saw in Mahabharata when Duryodhana says, I know what is dharma, but I am not able to apply myself to doing dharmic actions. I know what is adharma, but I am not able to stop myself from doing adharmic actions. It is as though there is some indweller inside my heart who is pushing me to do these things. Which means what? Basically, the dushta samskara, the asuric quality, the demonic qualities which have been nurtured through all the past lives that one has lived wrongly. So one is born with a lot of these demonic qualities. They completely, the vasanas are so strong, they demand so much of bandwidth of the prana that you are not able to command enough force for your judgment. Your judgment does not have enough control over prana to assert itself on the action level. Even at the action level, one loses control to the subconscious urges because the prana is taken over by the subconscious. Thought and action, mind and prana, both are two branches coming from the same point. So one has to do tapasya. So consciously, when one understands and observes oneself, understands what is right, but upon self-observation, when we find that it is very difficult for me to apply what I understand in action, that means one has to do tapasya, and the highest tapasya is pranayama, where one is able to win back one's control over the vitality, and once your control over vitality is there, your intellect, your conscious understanding will have enough control over prana and the subconscious tendencies will not have access to prana. So a space is created where you are empowered to apply yourself into virtuous action. That is why even in before you do japa, even in karmas, spiritual practices, when you do japa, before doing japa, they will do shukla amardram vishnum and all that. They will stimulate the prefrontal cortex by 5 times they uh, gently knock the forehead, and after that they do a by meditate on Ganesha, and after that they do pranayama, om boho, the Gayatri pranayama they do in Sandhya Vandram, and others they do pranayama using the Mula mantra, a kind of an Nadi Shuddhi where you inhale consciously with control, hold the breath inside, exhale consciously with control, maybe hold the breath outside also, like that, a few cycles, and after that only they go into meditating on the deity and starting the mantra japa. So pranayama has always been an accessory of dharma. As much as pranayama is an accessory of yoga, pranayama is also an accessory of dharma and karma. Sannyasis also do pranayama, grihasthas also do pranayama. So pranayama is like a master tool to control the mind. It's like always like a safety valve. It's always good to start your meditation practice with pranayama. It is always good to do some pranayama before your study. Even if you are doing Vedanta, it is good to do some pranayama before and bring the mind and become very conscious and then do some study. You can see Zen monks, in Zen monasteries, when they study the sutras, they have a method of doing it. One student of Zen, one Buddhist monk, Brahmachari, he told me about it. So you sit straight and hand is there in that mudra, the Buddhist style mudra, and they are breathing consciously and deeply with full controlled conscious breathing. They sustain that breathing and then they read the text with full breath control. They read the text with the mind, or they inhale and then they read along with breath control. Karmam Bayantaral Kartanadayal Karm Kadavlo Para Karmam Jadamadal Para, like that, no? So the entire chanting is happening with breath control, and then after the breath is exhausted, you take a deep inhale and then again start reading with a gentle whisper. I do like that, or you are just reading with your eyes and mind while you are sustaining the breath. So this is how they practice, so that the buddhi is more active, available, and the background noise is shut down while they are doing the study. So in these verses, Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi has pointed out to the method of yoga, Raja Yoga, by saying that prana and mind arise from the same point. If I control one, the other gets controlled. So we use that logic, understanding, and we practice control of the breathing, and from there develop control of the breathing urge. This is my commentary. The verse says only control of the breath. If you control the breath, the mind will be caught and controlled, like how a bird is caught in a nest. And this is one useful method for controlling the mind. That's all it says. Now, how to control the breath is not just you hold your nose and then you inhale and hold the breath inside as long as you can. It's not like that. It's a process. It has to be done gradually and properly. There is a sutra that talks about pranayama. In Yoga Sutra, it says gradually, by taking care of each with vrittis, bahya vritti, stampana vritti, abhyantara vritti, puraka, rechaka, kumbhaka, by mastering each aspect of the breathing cycle gradually and elongating it, making it long and subtle, to the point where one is able to work with the breathing urge using one's intention, combining it with dharana, or concentrating on a body specific body point, and probably using some mantras, bija mantras or some mula mantras while you are doing the retention. It's called sagarbha pranayama. So in pranayama there are two. So basically pranayama means stopping the breath. Okay. Swasa praswasyor gati vicheda pranayama. Stopping the movement that causes the breath. That is pranayama. It is done in two ways, sahita and kevala. I can directly take control of the point from where the breathing arises and stop the prana with my will, kevala kumbhaka. One arrives at it gradually, it is not possible immediately. So one practices sahita kumbhaka. I inhale, basically I give some deep breathing to the body whereby the urge, the natural urge to breathe is suspended. I give more breath to the body than the body is asking naturally. Then what happens? The natural urge to breathe suspended, and I am able to hold the breath inside or outside for a period that is longer than what I can do normally without taking a deep breath. No, just randomly you hold the breath, don't breathe. We'll try some experiment now. Just randomly hold the breath. See how many seconds you can hold without restlessness. 4 or 5 seconds, let's say. Now what you do, as the breath comes in, inhale a little bit more than what comes naturally. Now if you observe your breath, the breath comes in partially and then the breath starts going out. The going out breath also stops partially and the breath starts coming in. Now if you observe when we observe the natural breathing, you can see this. It's not a full breath. Plus, the natural force of exhalation will feel a little stronger than the natural force of inhalation. In a normal sitting position or standing position or a lying position, if you observe the natural rhythm of the breathing, your exhalation will be slightly stronger than inhalation. So what you're going to do is just inhale a little more, 50% more deliberately. Every time when the breath comes in, inhale 50% more and let go. Again inhale 50% more, let go. Keep on doing that. When you let go, I mean, do not control the exhalation. Let the exhalation be natural. You just make your inhalation a little deeper and just leave it. If you keep doing this, after a few breaths, after a few inhalations, you can notice the natural force of breathing out, no, exhalation. The natural force of exhalation has become less. The force of exhalation has become less. Exhalation naturally will be slower. That is the sign that the body's oxygen demand is less. At that point, exhale completely. All the air is out. You can feel the lungs are empty. The abdomen is contracted. Let go. Allow the breath to come in. And take a deep inhale around 80% of the lungs. You feel your lungs around 80%. And hold the breath. See how long you can hold comfortably. Once there is a need for breathing more, just let go. Allow the breathing to happen. Take a couple of deep breaths and relax. Try this now. You can also try it some other time after the class again to have a hang of it. breaths. Yeah, it usually takes 6 or 7 breaths, around 6, 7, 8 breaths for the natural breathing urge, exhaling urge to slow down. And then you take a deep inhale and hold. Exhale completely, then take a deep inhale and hold. You see, you'll be able to hold for a longer time without the urge to breathe coming in the body. Then you gradually let go of the breath and stay quiet. The natural urge to breathe will take some more time to come up. So this is Sahita Kumbhaka, accompanying the retention with elongated inhale and exhale, or both. Inhale or exhale or both. When that accompanies the retention, it is called Sahita Kumbhaka. Having mastered the three aspects of Sahita Kumbhaka, internal retention, external retention, the inhalation, exhalation, after mastering these components, when the breathing becomes very long and subtle, where one becomes aware of the breathing urge and one is able to take complete conscious control of the breathing movement, one can tune one's awareness to the point where the breathing urge arises in the body and reverse that current, with your intention. And then that will suspend the whole urge. Then you just let go of the breath and keep it like that. For a certain amount of time, you will be able to postpone the breathing urge from arising in the body. So that is called Kevala Kumbhaka. So these are two types of Kumbhakas. And whenever the retention is practiced, the mind is busy, right? So the mind should not go here and there. So what we do is we do Sagarbha Kumbhaka. During the retention, the mind is concentrated on a mantra. Usually, you remember a mantra or an idea or a concept, or you focus the mind on a certain part of the body, some chakra or some adhara. No? So what happens? You engage the mind consciously in a concentration, in a concentration method, while the breath is retained. When the breathing and the urge to breathe are controlled, you are also controlling your intention. No, don't go into daydreaming, but you keep a steady intention. So that is how we gradually master the pranayama and use the pranayama as an accessory for meditation and eventually use it for being absorbed back into the self. So if you see in Bhajagovindam, there is a line. It says, pranayamam pratyaharam nitya nitya viveka vicharam. Right? So even for nitya anitya viveka vicharam, which is jnana yoga in popular terminology, one needs pranayama and pratyahara. So that is the point of this. We discussed the basic approach of pranayama, where it's like pranayama is like controlling a horse. You can control the horse with a lot of force, where the horse is just waiting to jump on you and kick you. Or you can bring the horse gradually under control by being nice to it, giving some grass and making it friendly. So this is the approach that is recommended for pranayama. The prana should be brought under control gradually, very slowly and deliberately, and give it all its time, accompanied by other practices that are calming down our intention, emotions and mind. Of course, also the lifestyle which is disciplined through yama niyama. Right? So that is how pranayama is practiced, not some a blind control of the breathing to forcibly stop the mind. It does not work. It does not work in short term. It does not work in long term either. So with this, we will conclude this class. The next class is talking about two types of silencing of the mind, laya and nasha, which we will discuss in the next class. Okay. So any questions is there? You can note it down and present it in the next class. Today time is over. Om Purnamada Purnamitam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tatsat. Try these breathing techniques that we discussed today. Let me know how it